Hello guys, in this video I'm going to talk you through how to solve a quadratic inequality. This will come up in the higher grades at GCSE, so grade 8, grade 9, and also in year 1 of the A-level maths. So looking first at this question, we're asked to solve all of this less than or equal to 0. Now looking at this, hopefully you recognise it's a quadratic. The reason we know it's a quadratic is it's got squaring in, but no other higher powers. Okay, and quadratics often come in the form something squared plus or minus a certain number of that thing, and then with a constant added or subtracted on as well. So when you see that, you know you're working with a quadratic. To start off solving a quadratic inequality, I am going to consider the quadratic equation, by which I mean I'm going to turn that into an equals and deal with that first. So I'm going to consider when x squared plus 7x plus 12 is actually equal to 0. Now, to solve a quadratic equation, there are 3 things you can do. You can try factorising if that works, or you can try the quadratic formula, or you can solve by completing the square. I would always suggest you go through them in that order, okay? Because then you start with the easiest one if it's possible and go through to the quadratic formula if it's not. So, to factorise, I need to find a pair of numbers that multiplies to 12 and adds to make 7. If you find it hard to come up with them, you can list them. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. Those are all the factor pairs of 12. 3 and 4 add to make 7. So I need to have x squared plus x plus 3x plus 12 equals 0. Okay, or if you're happy to, you can go straight to x plus 4, x plus 3 equals 0. If you do this method, you need to factorise each bit and go from there. But for this one, you probably find it easier just to write those straight in. That means that either x plus 4 is 0 or x plus 3 is 0. So our 2 solutions are x equals minus 4 or x equals minus 3. Now I've whizzed through that. If you're not sure on how to do this, look back over how to solve quadratic equations before you then look back on inequalities. So these 2 values we have here are solutions to the equation. So if I put these x values in, it would come out as exactly 0. These are known as our critical values. So what we now need to do is work out whether we want the numbers between the critical values or outside of them. The way I'm going to do that is by considering a number line. I'm going to draw a number line. I've got minus 4 and minus 3. So minus 4 is lower than minus 3. I'm also going to pop 0 on the number line. The reason I like using 0 for these questions is the easiest number to think about. Because it's less than or equal to 0, I am allowed x to actually be these 2 values. So to show that on the number line, I'm going to do coloured in circles above the x. Now the question is, do I need the numbers in between them, or do I need the numbers on the outside of them? And I'm going to test a value. I'm going to test out 0. So I'm going to put 0 in as my x value and see whether it comes out as less than 0 or more than 0. So I'm going to do 0 squared plus 7 lots of 0 plus 12. Well, 0 plus 0 plus 12 is 12. That is not less than or equal to 0, so that's not going to work. So I do not want 0 to be in the part of the inequality I want. So I do not want the outsides. Instead, I want the insides. If you wanted to check it, you could choose a number that's in between, like minus 3.5. Substitute minus 3.5 in, and you will find you get something less than or equal to 0. Okay, so this is the range of numbers that I need to capture for my solution. So I'm going to say minus 4 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to minus 3. And that is the solution. Okay. Now let's have a look at this one here. I'm going to follow the same process. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to consider this whole quadratic equaling to 0. X squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0. I've got 3 methods to solve a quadratic. Factorising first, then quadratic formula, and if that doesn't work, completing the square. So I'm going to go for factorising first of all. I need a pair of numbers that times to minus 10 and add to minus 3. So I can go for minus 10 and 1, 10 and minus 1, minus 5 and 2, or 5 and minus 2. Those are all the factor pairs of 10. I actually need minus 5 and 2 to get the minus 3. So I'm going to write this as x minus 5, x plus 2 equals 0. Now I need to solve that. Either x minus 5 is 0 or x plus 2 is 0. So therefore x is 5 or x is minus 2. These are my critical values. It's really important, particularly when you get to A level, that if you're doing this, you write the fact that you've considered and that these are the critical values. What you don't want is to suggest to the examiner that you believe those are the answers, because they're not. So we're now going to use those values on the number line, and 0 this time is in between them. Because we don't have the equals bit on, I'm going to do non-coloured in circles because we don't want to include them exactly. I'm going to test out 0. 0 squared minus 3 lots of 0 minus 10. Is that true or not? 0 minus 10 is minus 10. That is not bigger than 0. So I do not want the inside. I instead want the outside. This inequality is represented by x is less than minus 2. And this inequality is represented by x is bigger than 5. Okay? And I need to pop an or in there because it can be that or that, not both at the same time.